Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Huma Hamid. I'm the president of Pakistani Women. Sorry, I'm the co-founder of Pakistani Women in Computing and former president. And today I brought another really exciting session for all of you as part of Pakistan Tech Summit series. It's a month-long global virtual event series that Ijad Lab is bringing to you. And the goal here is to bridge the gap between all the Pakistanis living abroad, working in tech, and bringing visibility to their work. So today I have with me Dr. Muneera Bano. She's a senior lecturer at Deakin University in Melbourne, and she is teaching software engineering. And today we will be talking about a number of things that Dr. Monira has been doing as part of her journey in STEM and her research, her experience as faculty member, international student, and the number of awards that she has won as part of her work for diversity and inclusion in Australia. So welcome, Dr. Monira Bano. Welcome to the session.
Thank you so much, Huma. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And it's so nice to be here with you finally face to face after knowing you for a long time over the internet.
That's the feeling is mutual, definitely. So Dr. Monira has been part of PWIC for more than a year. The first time I got to know about her when she sent her nomination for one of her series called STEM Stories. And that's how we got to know about the amazing work that she was doing. And since then, we've been trying to get to know her better and, trying to get to learn more from her experiences. So Dr. Monira, this is in every way, this is a global session right now. I'm based in the US. Dr. Muneera is joining us from Australia. And the session that we are hoping that the audience will be, majority of them will be in Pakistan. So it's a really exciting time for all of us. So one of the bright sides of, coronavirus that we are doing all these virtual sessions and connecting all, globally. So going into your introduction and talking about your experience, you are a passionate advocate for women in STEM. Before you became the advocate for women in STEM, what inspired you to join STEM? And the time that you have spent in Pakistan and the time that you have spent in Australia pursuing higher education, and you're also, you did your PhD from University of Technology in Sydney in 2015. So tell us about your educational journey. What inspired you? What you brought you here where you are right now?
So thank you so much, Uma. I would say that a lot of things in life just happened. It's not like when I was young and I had everything planned out that I'm going to go in STEM and I'm going to do a PhD and go to Australia. Now, even 10 years ago, I had no idea I will be sitting here today and where I am. So I was born in Islamabad, born and raised there in a Pashtun family. I was born after 4 brothers. I'm the 5th and the only female child. So there are 2 things that I think played a huge part in inspiring me for pursuit of education, and especially a male-dominated field. First of all, being at home, the only girl with 4 boys. Mm-hmm. This is kind of an environment where you get used to or get comfortable with being the only woman in the room. And secondly, it was about the fact that in my mother's generation, like the entire family, all my aunties and everyone in her generation, they were not allowed access to education. So I could see a huge difference between the men in the family who were very educated, financially very strong, and all the women, they were very highly dependent on them. Mm-hmm. Seeing that my father allowed me, it was all up to me. There was no one forcing me, but I did not have those cultural boundaries or restrictions imposed on me. I thought there came a point in time where I was very motivated to show that given an equal opportunity, yes, you can excel in any field. And my brothers were all pursuing degrees in science, so I had to naturally follow them. They were my first, I would say, inspiration, where whatever they were doing, I had to do the same. Mm-hmm. It was around, I think, when I was doing my FSC in Islamabad, where, there's a huge push on the girls that you have to go in medical sciences, because mm-hmm. if you are studying science, you have to be a medical doctor.
Right.
I wanted to be a doctor, but not a medical doctor. So, and that took a huge, I would say, amount of arguments and, persuasion that I wouldn't go into tech. And immediately everyone would be, what are you going to do in there? Like, as a woman, they don't see a future in tech. But at the same time, I knew a lot of female doctors who, even after graduating from a medical college, they were not pursuing any career. They were just getting married and settling down. So if it's about a career choice, then it doesn't matter where I am. And I preferred either going into computing, or the second choice was chemistry, which was rather strange for everyone, that why are you going into these fields? I was like, I just like them, and that's why I want to pursue. Eventually, I got into computer science at International Islamic University, Islamabad. There was an OPF girls' college campus where we used to be. I did my bachelor's and master's, and while I was doing my master's, I got offered to be research assistant in the same faculty with the HOD. So while with my master thesis, I was an RA there, and once I graduated from master's, I got an offer to be lecturer there. Within 2 years, I became assistant professor. And then by the time I was assistant professor, I was appointed as the first deputy head of the department in the female section. Quite an interesting experience of leadership without any training or any mentoring. That was like, pushing someone into the water to go and learn on your own. And that experience lasted with me for life, to learn on my own the mistakes I made and how to recover from those mistakes or not to repeat them in different contexts. And it was around that time when I made the decision to pursue a PhD. For the first time, I became serious about the career, that if I am going to stay in academia, then I have to do a PhD. I came to Australia in 2012 under the Schlumberger Faculty for the Future Scholarship for Women in STEM. And I've graduated after 3 years here. I was offered a postdoc under Australian Research Council Discovery Project on educational technologies. I finished that, and then I got offer here in Melbourne at Swinburne University as a lecturer. And after 2 years, Deakin University, I got here an offer for being the senior lecturer. Seems like things worked out. There were a lot of failures here throughout the journey, so many difficulties, leaving the country behind, coming here, the cultural shock. It's a very, I would say, long story, but just to cap it down for you, my STEM journey, that's how things happened. Opportunities came up. I raised my hand. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And that's how where I am today.
That's awesome. That's a really exciting journey. And I would like to know if, in the context of like early exposure to STEM can go a really long way. So apparently you being the only girl in the family may have given you the kind of exposure that you were looking for. So just if you like to add a few, or would you agree that being the only female in the family actually helped you not have that gender stereotype role in STEM? So was it easy for you to learn all the things that you were doing?
It gave me a bit of an experience on how to be totally okay if you are the only woman in the room. I was scared of men in that way. Like my brothers, they are all older than me. I have a huge age difference with them as well. I was always the shortest and the youngest in the room, and the only female. So when I was with my brothers, and I think it makes a huge difference. And also, like, my competition was with brothers when the sibling rivalry comes in terms of grades, and push it like, okay, you had this grades in 10th grade, I'm gonna take more than that, or I'm gonna outperform you. So I think it was I was never afraid of going into male dominated field because of that environment that I was in when I was raised. I think it does make a huge difference. I could see that when sometimes in the meetings, the women, they had difficulty in expressing their opinions. I did not have that hesitation. If I was okay to get up and tell them what I think about it. Sometimes backfired as well, because that's not how a woman in Pakistani academia was supposed to behave. But I think that upbringing makes a huge difference. That when you, from a young age, tell a girl that she should keep her opinions to herself and be, subservient, uh, gradually when she grows up and go out, even she has a career, that unconsciously there is somewhere she feels that she is not supposed to oppose the patriarchal system or the work environment. In my household, being the only girl, like, I was appreciated for talking. My brothers wanted to listen to me, so there was a reversal of the gender roles. But when I grew up, I saw that outside my house things were different. They were not the same way, but I was already, like, I was programmed that way that I'm okay.
Right. Okay, so moving to the part where you moved to Australia, your experience there as an international student, and then navigating the new cultural differences, and learning a new life, being independent. What are some of the lessons or some of the interesting stories that you would like to share with us? As a student, I've been there. I know that it was quite a shocking experience for me initially, like, just especially traveling, living in London, and traveling, using the transport system, and just being by myself. That was initially, like, it used to intimidate me. But how was your experience, like, pursuing your research, being an international student, and connecting with the local community and other students in Sydney?
So in 2012, when I came, one of my brother traveled with me for support. Came here, settled me down. He was here for 10 days and he was leaving. And I still remember trying to behave very bravely, even though I really, inside my heart, I just wanted to tell him, I want to go back with you. I don't want to stay behind here. But I think when I was coming to Australia, because he was with me, it wasn't a huge problem. It was when I was here in Sydney and he was leaving. At that time, I pretended really brave, and when he left, it was like, what the hell have I done? Why I even made this decision? It took a long time to, be okay with that decision. And at the same time, because my decision to come here to do PhD was not something that was easy for me to make, or I would say, convince my parents and a lot of people to, yeah, it's okay, I can do it. There were a lot of ifs and buts, and I said, it's okay, I can do it. But then at the same time, I think the biggest problem was that when you make this kind of decision, if you face any challenge here based on your decision about you are alone, you have a cultural shock, you're feeling lonely, the very first thing is, kisne kaha tha jane ko?
Right. So you cannot even complain back if things are difficult. Yeah, absolutely.
So the hardest part is that always pretending that, oh, I'm at the top of my things, I'm totally okay, even when you're not. So there were, the first couple of months were very hard because I had doubts myself that maybe this was not a good decision, and my life was totally easy and where I was in a comfort zone. Well, why would I, push myself out of the comfort zone? I had to do everything on my own. I never had to do the grocery or, all the other chores, that very small things that you don't even think about at home. I never had to open the fridge and find out that, okay, the milk, I have to go now buy milk, or, buy bread or something. And then I had to do grocery, I had to do laundry, I had to do everything, cleaning, in Australia, in the housing, there were no workers for you or the maids coming and doing your chores. It was a very difficult time, but after 6 months, gradually, once you develop a comfort zone, then the research work was really good. I worked on a project and I already managed to publish 2 papers by then. So you see some results coming back, and then you make some friends. I think that's an important part. And I had a really good relationship with my PhD supervisor here, Professor Dida Zoe. She's from Iran, and we had some cultural overlappings, me being Pashtun. So I think it takes some effort for you to create a comfort zone, but once you do, then things become much more easier.
Right.
And and gradually, then I realized once I went back to Pakistan and over there in academia, I realized that It was I could play much more to my strength and potential here in Australia than in Pakistan. So I mean, it's a moment of realization as well.
Right, right. So speaking to that, how did you find the research opportunity, especially in area of software engineering? So you are currently at Fracture International Requirements Engineering, and also you're part of you several different conferences and publications, and you're also an associate editor of the Institute of Engineering and Technology Software Journal. So a lot of research, right? And one of your papers has also won Distinguished Research Paper Award. So speaking to that, how did you find the research opportunities in Australia to be different, and also that they helped you groom as a researcher and as a faculty member?
I would say that it depends a lot on your supervisor, that how well established they are in the research community. So when I came here, I think the requirements engineering lab that I joined in University of Technology, Sydney, the professor was connected to the global community of researchers in requirements engineering. And I think that's an important thing to give you an exposure to the established community. So in 2018, first time I traveled to RE conference, the one that you mentioned, where I got the best distinguished research paper later in 2018. I attended that conference in 2013 for the first time in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, along with my supervisor. And she's an excellent mentor. She took me with her and to introduce me to those professors in the field. As a PhD student, it's a bit difficult for the students to approach, especially coming from a South Asian background. There is a bit apprehension that how to initiate a conversation with these researchers in the field. And she made it very easy. So we were going out for dinners, and in the social gathering, it becomes much more informal and comfortable to talk to them. And some of them were really amazing mentors themselves. And later on, they invited me to be on the program committee and organizing committee. And gradually, I made the mark in that conference. Only Pakistani at the moment to be involved in the organization level. I would like a huge credit to my supervisor that she opened that door. Okay, I had to walk through it, but I wouldn't be able to if someone wouldn't open the doors. And I think your supervisors, your mentors, who are already part of the community, they play a very critical role in that. Search opportunities usually, in my case, I have seen that it depends on how good of a relationship you have with your supervisor and how active they are in the field.
So one of the questions that comes up a lot is, I have done my master's, and should I go for the industry, or should I go or pursue, higher education or PhD? And a number of times, these decisions are mostly around, I have time right now, so maybe I should do it today, versus later in life. So what would you recommend or advise to students who are still evaluating their options to one, doing PhD, and how should they choose if they should do it or not? And secondly, when is the right time to make that decision? And if you would recommend then coming to Australia?
So first of all, I do get a lot of emails from students from Pakistan who wants to do PhD, and they are applying for scholarship at UTS or Deakin University as well. My very basic question always is why. Just be honest and let me know, why do you want to do a PhD? A lot of girls, they say, abhi tak shaadi nahi hui to isliye. I mean, that's not a good enough reason, because the moment shaadi ho jayegi, you will leave this. So why are you putting up, wasting time and resources of someone else as well? Time hai, agar you have a free time, but at the same time, do you have an aptitude? Do you have an interest? Do you really see how beneficial that PhD will be, not just for you, but for others around you as well? What do you want to achieve out of it? This why question is very important, because it's a 3 to 5 years commitment. And a lot of people, they struggle because they didn't get into this PhD for right reasons. You should have some intellectual curiosity to do research. आपको research से पहले बहुत होनी चाहिए before getting into a PhD, because PhD is all about research. It's not like you're going to sit an exam and pass and with some grades. You are in the
Right.
process of creating new knowledge that has not been there. Do you know what of knowledge means? Do you even know the philosophical backgrounds of what do you believe the new knowledge consists of? यहाँ पे सारे मतलब they think that, oh, I thought we were doing PhD in software engineering. Why do you have to study philosophy? Because you need to understand that it's the PhD stands for Doctorate of Philosophy. Whether you're doing software engineering or psychology or natural sciences, you need to understand the background of the creation of new knowledge, which stems from the fact intellectual curiosity. फिर मैं उनसे पूछती हूँ, अच्छा, what is the topic that you want to work on? Is the problem relevant? Are you impacted by that problem? In Pakistan, a lot of girls, they come and talk about, उन्होंने कोई एक दो research paper पढ़े and they think that they are gonna try and work on that. You don't have industrial experience. You don't know the actual reason or the causal roots behind that problem. You just paper. Abhi recently, ek do thi, I talked to them. They were faculty members in Pakistan, and I told them, why don't you do some research on the educational structure of tech-based curricula, जो वहाँ पे software engineering पढ़ाई जाती है, computer science. Why don't you look at that? And they said, but ये तो सबको समझ आ जाएगी. And I was like, so what's the problem? But you're actually doing something that's relevant to your life, that is going to make a social impact there. So do you want to do a PhD that is impactful, or you just want to have a stamp on you that you are a doctor? What that will be for Pakistan or humanity at large. So in terms में, we have to make them, force them to think in these terms. It's not just that कि आपने degree after degree, you're just making a collection over your wall. What is it you want to get out of it? हमारे कितने पाकिस्तान के social problems हैं जो education field में हैं, जो जिनके लिए technological solutions चाहिए. We need technical solution, a lot of them over there. Why don't our researchers, they focus on those problems that are there? Research they have to come up with new solutions which were not there for the problems that are within the context of Pakistan. So why don't they focus and do PhD? Well enough, Australia mein aake karen. There has been few researchers coming from South Asian region coming to Australia doing research for finding solution to the problems coming from South Asian region.
Right.
So, I mean, this is what I would recommend to them, that think of the problem in terms of society they are living in. That impacting their own life as well.
Right. And going back to, you brought up actually a really good point about not having enough research available. So just, going to share a little bit about my research is when I was doing my master's in the UK. So I had to come up with a research problem, and I was really interested in knowing how different enterprise systems are being implemented in Pakistan, because it was 2007, 7 and 8. It was a time when telecom industry was booming. We were seeing a lot of new companies coming in. So, and I wanted to do research on the implementation challenges in Pakistan, and there was zero to none research studies available. So it was a very daunting and challenging task for me. I still finished my research on that, and I published a paper 12 years ago. So that's when I felt the need that, yes, your problem domain can be, maybe you're still trying to look at a question that may have been solved for the first world, but it may not have been solved for the third world. So there's still number of opportunities and questions available. So absolutely right, and agree to what you're saying.
And there was, last time I was in Pakistan in December, and I was telling one of my friends that why don't we have, there is so much in the tech that could be done within the cultural setup. In Australia, there's an all-female share ride called Shiba, right? It's a substitute of Uber, but it's all-female. The drivers and the passengers have to be all-female. It's for the safety. And some communities, cultural communities here, they don't want to leave their kids, especially if the kids are coming from school or they want a ride, they would prefer to have a female driver rather than male. So in Pakistan and countries like that, where for safety of women is a priority, I mean, we have precautions against that. So it kind of business opportunities in tech, they would flourish. So if we look at our tech solutions based within the cultural context.
Context, absolutely. Yep.
We just adopt whatever works in USA and Australia. We think that they are going to work 100% the same. That technology that was designed in a certain way in a cultural setup, it's not going to be the same implementation when it comes to our country. So I think the cultural awareness that the tech has to have some cultural intelligence and within the design of the software and the hardware, and also the implementation, all these entrepreneurship that opportunities are coming up. The culture, the way the society works, it has to be there, even in the research or whatever.
Yeah, I think that you just it just resonated what you're saying. So I would like to move on to the next part, where I would like to learn about the honors and awards that you have been, that you have received. So in 2019, you have been awarded as the most influential Asian Australian under 40. And I also listened to your acceptance speech. It was amazing. Would you like to share about that award with us?
So because you were talking about the honors, I think the journey started in 2018 when I made the first time created a public profile when I became the superstar of STEM for Science and Technology Australia. That was a program aimed at bringing forward the female scientists into the mainstream media, to give them voices, confidence, to diversify the STEM industry. I think the journey started from there, working and going out with the outreach programs and everything. And it was, I think, the nomination for this Under 40 award was a push from one of the sister superstar of STEM, who thought that she was asking few of us who are from Asian background to go for it. And it was just 2 days left when I put in my profile there. And because those who were from Chinese background or Indian background here, they are well established. They were either born and raised here or came to Australia as, very young kids, and they were very established here. So I was like, okay, even if I make it to the second round, that would be an honor, considering that I'm a very recent off the boat kind of person.
Right.
When I got this call from the judgment convener to tell me that I am the overall winner, it took me a while. I asked him to repeat to me, what are you saying? And he said, you as the overall winner. And again, I asked why. Are you complaining? So no, I'm not complaining. I'm puzzled. He said, because your story was different than others. And the story was about the fact I told you that the background that I never had a female role model. I had to figure out things as a woman on my own, making the decision to come to Australia with no family, no friends here, starting from absolutely level 0, and then all the way to that. He said that this story stood out among all others who had some privileges to start with when they were in Australia. That was absolutely it was an amazing experience, knowing all the people from Asian Australian background. That was my first exposure to the community as well, with the honor that they gave me. And it's kind of a responsibility as well now to mentor and show others that it's possible. It's difficult work to make your mark, but it's possible.
Right. Yeah, I only mentioned the first award, but you are absolutely right that you have a series of awards. That's what so Superstar of STEM, and you're also a member of Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Committee for Science and Technology in Australia. You have, and you are an ambassador for Go Girl, Go for IT 2020. And then you were the finalist for Google Australia's Anita Borg Award for Women in Computer Science, and award for your research, award as a faculty member. So you have a thing for awards, right? What's with that? You
just like I said, that I have the confidence to, whenever the opportunity comes, I do put my name in.
That's awesome.
there have been, I would say, the number of awards put them double the time I got rejected as well. But I'm resilient. I think it's important to come forward to share your story and put your name in. I've seen, like, whenever I have other Pakistani friends here, when I tell them there is an opportunity and you're eligible, they just back off. They say, no, this seems like extra work. Who has the time to, the form is too long, or I don't think I will get it. I said, this last point, I don't think I will get it. You don't know until you're in it. Not thinking it means you don't get it, but you have to be in it to win it. So
right.
Quite a number of time I've seen, like, there aren't any Pakistani women coming forward in any of the awards, and especially from Muslim background, and someone who can show that, okay, the women from our part of the world have what it takes to be in the same room, and not just being in the same room, but to win these opportunities. I think it's about the representation, as well as, just like I said, that I do have a passion to be the advocate for women in STEM, and you need to set some examples. You have to set badges of honors on your shoulder before people will take that your words are worth something, and you can inspire others.
Absolutely. No, we are really proud of your work, and we are, and it's so important to put yourself out there. That's absolutely important. That's the first step towards, before even you get the award. It's important to basically, go after it, or apply for it, or show up. So, and that brings up another question, like, and I would, just would like to talk about imposter syndrome, something that, a lot of people, they think that they're not good enough, they are not qualified enough, they are not, and that becomes, that negative voice in their head stops them from even applying for these opportunities. So even as part of PWIC, I get a number of messages when, if there is a job posting, or if there is a scholarship posting, or an opportunity that we post, the first question I get in my inbox, I think I can apply for it, but I don't think I will qualify, or maybe, do you think I should apply for it? And my response usually is, you should definitely apply for it. Like, first of all, I cannot tell if somebody should apply for it, but I can always tell you will not know until you try. So
exactly.
How was your experience? Like, I'm sure that there has been some moment of failures as well. It's not like always winning every time. So would you like to share about that?
I think, Uma, it's also, if we go back to our experiences from the young age, it's like, when I remember being in the primary and secondary school, there used to be these opportunities to for extracurricular activities to come, forward in front of the whole school on the stage for purposes, and that's where you develop the real confidence. I have participated in dramatics, I have participated in singing, acting, I have done speeches a couple of times. I used to conduct the morning assembly. I think that's in front of a large audience. When you get comfortable from a very young age, first of all, then you stop caring about too much about the opinions of others. If you always shy away from opportunities, the opinions of others matter to you. The imposter syndrome has a lot to do with, not with your own perception, but also with how others look at you. It could be your family members telling you you're not good enough, or where someone who was important to you somewhere in your life has told you, no, you're not good enough for this thing or that thing. If you care a lot about others' opinion, you will always look at yourself and say that, okay, I'm not good enough. So the first step is to listen to other people, but don't get impacted by it when you really want to do something. I was being told so many times, I can't come to Australia on my own. I will not survive a single month. I will be back. I will be a failure. It could have been true, but at the same, I wouldn't know unless I try. So I came here to see whether I fail or not. If I fail, so what? I mean, why do we think that failure is like a very negative and a setback that we will never recover from? Like I told you, I've applied for so many awards that I got rejected. There were grant applications that got rejected. So many papers that I've put forward. If I have a distinguished paper award, then there is a long list of papers that were rejected in a peer review.
Right,
If
right.
I just sit down and start crying and never get up and try again, then that would be an end.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's a moment of learning, learn from it, and then try again. But recently we had this session I had for Pakistani women in computing about knowing yourself to lead yourself. These
Mm-hmm.
negative thoughts that cause imposter syndrome, people have to, be mindful and
Mm-hmm.
take time out to think about it. That if every time there's an opportunity and you think you're not good enough, then whether it's about the skills that you don't have or it's just you don't have the confidence.
Mm-hmm.
These are two different things: aptitude or not being, always being anxious or nervous, or the
Mm-hmm.
fear of failure. What is it that's keeping you away from going
Mm-hmm.
for it? The moment you realize that, okay, this is what the actual thing is, whether I'm not capable, like for example, if there is something in arts or music, I have a PhD in software engineering. I know I don't have the skills to apply for it. That's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
If I just rely on my confidence, that would be arrogance.
Right,
Not
right.
so I have to have a balance here, that I'm good enough in terms of skills, because that gives you confidence, and at the same time don't give in to the negative thoughts as well. It's not easy. It takes very much a conscious effort, but it's possible to overcome all these negative thoughts. So I would suggest to those, especially this is a problem with the women I have seen, they don't nominate themselves easily.
Mm-hmm.
Another fear is that if they win, there will be too much attention, or
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden you will be brought into a spotlight, and a
Right.
lot of people hear that as well.
Mm-hmm.
That goes back to, once again, if in the young age you have been on the stage in front of large audiences, or like as a lecturer, if I'm teaching a class of 2 or 300, I won't have that much of anxiety facing
Mm-hmm.
people, large numbers. So I think there are quite a number of factors around that, and everyone has to be conscious about what prevents them from going for nominations.
Right, right. There was a really good um, comment by Reshma Sajani. She's the founder for Girls Who Code, and she in one of her TED talks she mentioned that um, girls are tend to be more perfectionists. So when they try to be more perfectionist and we don't allow that to fail, then it really impacts their ability to learn and put themselves out there. So trying means that you will fail, and maybe as a culture we definitely have a fear for failure. Like we see failure as a very negative in a very negative context. So what advice you have for students, not just for women, like for students who shy away from applying for opportunities because they think that they may not uh, be able to make to those opportunities, or they may not be successful. So as a faculty member and as a teacher, as a mentor, what advice do you have for those students?
Look, just like I said, that this fear usually comes from either these negative thoughts. And in my
Mm-hmm.
case, if I'm not prepared for something, I don't have enough on my plate to show for, then I
Mm-hmm.
will not feel confident. And I know about it. I consciously made an effort to get to know what it is that will make me feel and give me anxiety, or make me, shake my confidence about something. It's, for
Mm-hmm.
example, I have to give a talk, and if I'm not prepared for it, I haven't had my points down or haven't looked at the agenda or anything, and just put me on the spot, I will not
Mm-hmm.
be as confident as I would be if I
Mm-hmm.
know everything about it. I have done my homework, I have all my points ready with me.
Mm-hmm.
uh, then I can deal with, put 100 people, 1,000 people, I know what to do. But if I'm not prepared, then the deadline or something gives me anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So I think preparation, planning, do your best to cover your background,
Mm-hmm.
uh, put your feet on the solid ground, and then play your best. So
Yeah,
this
that.
preparation thing that always will make you, like if you have a public talk, uh,
Mm-hmm.
TED talk, or anything, if you're not prepared for it, of course there is a huge chance that you're going to fail at some point.
Mm-hmm.
You have
Mm-hmm.
done your work, you have rehearsed to the best.
Mm-hmm.
It will boost your confidence a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a really good point. So moving on to some of these questions, since you know, you are in that position. Like when I was an international student, I relied a lot on advice and mentoring from my supervisor and my teachers. And you mentioned the same thing. So right now we are going through a global pandemic, right? It's and a number of students they have gone online all of a sudden. Now they're, instead of going to university, they are taking classes online. And there are also students who are graduating this summer and they do not know if they will have the opportunity to work, or pursue their career dreams after they graduate, because things are really different right now. So as a teacher, what would be your advice to students who are really overwhelmed with this online teaching experience, online learning and teaching experience, and also the students who are graduating this summer, what's their, how they should see the future, given the global situation?
So my first advice would be to, this is the time for almost all of us to understand that change is something that we have to accept in life. Things never remain the same.
Mhm,
Uh, I was talking to some of my students, like older students from Pakistan, when the pandemic started, and they were, talking about the lockdown and everything. And I told them we have been through enough events in our life to
mhm,
know what it means to go through a crisis. I was, a preschooler when there was an incident in Islamabad, the Ojri camp.
mhm,
It was a disastrous incident. A lot of people got killed, and the whole day was like from hell, that the
mhm,
missiles were coming on the capital. I
mhm,
couldn't understand as a child what was going on, but I remember my mother crying, and later on when I grew up, I read the stories of what actually happened.
right.
2005 earthquake, we were in
Mhm,
Islamabad. I'm the northwest of Pakistan. We had to go there. We saw the destruction,
mhm,
how quickly the villages after villages were wiped out from the surface of earth.
mhm,
Uh, some kids, they just completely lost their entire families. They were left with
mhm,
no at all. Then there was a suicide attempt, not just attempt, actual suicide attack in International Islamic University 10 years ago in
mhm,
October 2009. Nine of our students died. I attended their funerals. What I learned from those experiences is that crises come no matter what you do, but
mhm,
you have to learn to adopt and accept. You
mhm,
can't change it. We can't change this pandemic. We can't go back to what things were like in December 2019, but we have to
mhm,
adopt adaptability. The quicker you do, the sooner you get over that denial will
mhm,
be easy. And then your sense of purpose, your resilience, how honest and hardworking you are, it doesn't matter what kind of crisis, you will always get out of it. So
mhm,
just accept that this is a pandemic, we have to live with it and make the best out of it. Stop like complaining and try to be appreciative. I looked at
mhm,
some of the pictures of those people in Delhi and Bombay who had to leave the city after the lockdown. They were walking on foot because there was no transportation, and they were
mhm,
in mass. They couldn't separate from each other. That was the moment for me to realize that even social distancing is a privilege in this time.
mhm,
We have a job, we have a roof over our head. Uh, Look at the things that make you understand that you're still a privileged person.
mhm,
And in the end, not having the corona, being healthy, is the biggest blessing in this time. So look at the brighter side, that this is a tough time for everyone. It's nothing personal.
mhm.
So just be appreciative and grateful and try to do your best to get over with this crisis.
Right. That's really, really important thing to remember. And I think as anyone who has lived through those times, even I have worked, in Islamabad, and my office was like right opposite to Margala Tower. So I have seen that whole thing in front of my eyes. And then Marriott Place was right next to Evacuate Trust, and I've also experienced that. So just very important lesson to be resilient, to be, to be adaptive and to the change. So um, my next question is about the daunting situation when you're doing research? And this question comes up a lot as well, right? When people are, especially students, when they are international students, knowing that our education system back home in Pakistan is not very research oriented. So when these students, when they go to an international um, in a university where there's research, so a lot of time they find the research part very daunting because it's like unknown, solving the unknown. And a number of students, they get demotivated, they get defocused and everything. So what's your advice to those students who are struggling, to and they're rethinking if they made the right choice or not?
So for research minds, they need a research mindset. Unfortunately, our school educational systems, the majority of them are government schools, and they are not around the pedagogical design to encourage critical thinking. We are not allowed to ask questions. We are always, asked to accept answers the way they are, memorize them, and reproduce them back in an exam to show that we have learned. This research cannot happen without critical thinking, something that you have to step outside of your comfort zone, question things. When I said about this creation of knowledge, the process, and the philosophical understanding of what a truth would be, like when you say that I have come up with a new technique or a new process or a new model, how do you know that it's correct? So these things require a thinking process. So we have to first ask the students to sharpen their skills for critical thinking. And this happened with me. Like, I was lucky in Pakistan. Before coming to Australia, I had a really amazing teacher, Dr. Naveed Ikram, who is now professor at Rifa International University. And I attended a research methodology unit with him as a listener. I wasn't registered. I was a faculty member there. And that was kind of the moment that he just pushed us to the boundary to think about everything. And that unit helped me when I came to Australia. It doesn't matter which research direction you put me in, I had tools ready in my pocket. So I could question things, I could bring out the problem. And so that what helps you is the basics. There are two things. One is this critical thinking, one is your communication skills. I have seen students sending me email, like it's a bulk email. You can already see that, it's been copy pasted, badly formatted, so many grammatical mistakes. You give away your position completely away in your email. Any professor in the world, when they will read an email like this, they are never going to respond to you. I've heard students say, let me keep contacting these professors, but they never respond. And then I asked, show me the email that you sent them. And I said, no one's going to respond to you on this. Your communication, when you say you send your CV, if there are grammatical mistakes in your CV, even though you say your communication skills are impeccable, no one's going to believe that. So how do you present yourself, your first point of contact, your first impression, that we don't have, our students, especially in tech side, their communication skills, Urdu and English, both are bad. About English being not your mother tongue or national language, to ask them to write something in Urdu, they still can't do it, because the basics of the language, the way they portray it, the understanding of the language, how you communicate very crisply and get to the point within one or two sentences, they have a huge difficulty in doing that. So two things: critical thinking, your communication skills. It doesn't matter which research direction then someone puts you, you will excel.
Yes. Another question that comes up a lot is, when people are trying to decide which research topic or which domain they should pick. And I always find those questions, kind of, it shows that when you're asking that if I should go for machine learning and artificial intelligence, or do you think I should do data science, or do you think I should do AR and VR? So it shows that you do not know which, what are these things, and you're just picking on some buzzwords. So how important it is to understand a question or a research question before solving it, and how should students uh, pick those research questions based on what criteria would be your recommendation?
uh, Asking, like coming up with a valid research question is like 60% of your research
Hmm.
already done. If it was that easy, everyone would have been,
Yeah.
doing it. So the research methodology that we follow, we do the literature review, we go and do research the existing work and try to critically analyze and then come up with a question that takes in a PhD at least 1 or 2 years. And then
Hmm.
you come up with a question, and then the rest is all about, you proposing something to solve it.
Hmm.
About the area, unfortunately, in tech industry, it's all based on money. Wherever the funds are, the PhD
Hmm.
scholarships are there, and students have to do what they are giving the funds for.
Hmm.
In rare cases, like if you have a scholarship, like when I had with Schlumberger Women for STEM scholarship, I had the opportunity to select my own direction, which has positives as well as there are, some challenges as well, because then you are on your own to go and find something,
Hmm.
and which takes longer than if you are given a problem to solve immediately. But if you are given something, you may not have your whole heart in it. You may not have gone through the process of the pain of finding that research question.
Hmm.
But there are quite a number of courses on how to come up with a valid research question for certain fields. Like in software engineering, I remember there was a book my supervisor gave me. It was all about art of asking question. And
Hmm.
we sometimes we take it for granted. We said, okay, I will come up with a question. What's the problem? No, it's not that easy. A
Hmm.
question has to be valid. It has to be based on a lot of research in the background. And then there were types of questions like exploratory, investigative, causal relationship. What is it that the question is trying to answer? What kind of
Hmm.
data would be suitable for it, quantitative or qualitative? So that's why I
Hmm.
asked students to read a bit about the philosophy. If you know the philosophical background, your questions will be more sound,
Hmm.
based on whichever paradigm you're following.
Right.
Selecting an area, just like I said, either it's about the funding, or if you're doing on your own, in both cases, know which philosophical background you're coming from.
Hmm. So right now, when learning has gone virtual and everything is remotely possible, so do you think that this it will impact how um, higher education will happen in the future? Like, will it still be mandatory for students to go out and move to these countries to pursue research, or do you think that those opportunities can now be availed while staying in Pakistan?
Look, there are like multiple predictions about that. In Australia, the international students were a huge export. This was $1 billion industry. And I think they would be keen to open the borders at least to international students, if not others, in order to sustain this industry. And there will be opportunities in future if the students wants to come from Pakistan. But at the same time, like for higher education in Pakistan, uh, it's kind of a digital divide at the moment, that some of the students who may not have the infrastructure available, they don't have access to the internet, it may be a bit difficult for them to access the education. So I think the most important one will be how to ensure the access to education if it's going to be in virtual for a prolonged period of time. And at the same time, for Pakistani academia, they if the quality if students have to be in one location and they can access 4 or 5 universities, why would they select one particular? So in past, the location of the university used to matter, but in virtual environment, I think the question of the quality of education in different universities will matter a lot, in terms of their strength of research or their strength of their faculty. So there could be multiple things that we can see in future, but opportunities of going abroad, at the moment with the closure of the borders, like some of the students may be able to join, but because education did become an industry for a lot of countries and revenue being dependent on them, there will be initiatives to give some slack to these students to come and be in
Mhm.
quarantine for a certain period of time and then join the university. Of course, it's going to be not the same as it was before like till 2019, but for some period of time, yes, it's going to impact a lot.
Mhm. That's a really good insight into, and I'm sure a lot of students are wondering about the future of education, and I also found out that students are finding it really hard to find scholarships, especially with so much uncertainty. So I would ask the last question, and I saw that question triggered because I saw one of your Instagram posts about robotics and the future of automation. So um, your what's your view about future automation and use of robotics, especially in the context of what we're going through right now? So do you see a rise in automation and more robots to be part of our daily life? So would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, so like I'm based on being I like teach robotics. I was teaching it this semester, and it was very challenging considering that we went into online mode of teaching, and remotely
Hmm.
teaching robotics was a very unique experience for me. But at the same time, I mean, it was really amazing to see. I asked the students to think of current pandemic and come up with ways of how robotics can solve various social problems if we had full automation, and if we do in future, that situations like pandemic cannot be as impactful as they are currently on economy and other sectors. So automation does have the impact in terms like current crisis did make it very obvious, and a lot of businesses and workplaces are going to stay virtual for a longer period of time than anticipated, even if the pandemic is over.
Hmm.
uh, a lot of travel will be saved in those terms. So some may not revert back to what was the normal till 2019.
Right.
Uh, at the same time, like my issue, my research interest also is that with all this automation and dependence on data and coming to a data driven future society,
Hmm.
we know that data is full of problems. There are gaps of in terms of sexism, racism, and then there is a digital divide. Just like I
Hmm.
mentioned in education, simply those who do not have access to internet infrastructure, they will be impacted. They will be underprivileged in future in terms of education if it all goes virtual. The same
Hmm.
is that those who are not noisy or those not present in the data, we are doing a digital, I would say, genocide of those people. There are number of countries in the world where the peoples, even they are not registered being born. We know certain countries in Africa. I know certain examples in Afghanistan where the women's their names are not mentioned anywhere in documentation. They're always referred to by the name of a man. So
Hmm.
they don't, as long as the data goes, they don't exist. For a
Hmm.
data-driven society, they never existed to begin with.
Hmm.
So, how we are going to make it inclusive, diverse, fair to all people, because the decision making process will only cater to those people whose data points are there. So, these are the current challenges for us, especially who are from non Caucasian backgrounds. Uh, we need to move forward to make our mark into this research to make sure that when it, like for example, if automation comes to Pakistan, it's catering to the problems of Pakistan. It's not just replication of the first world countries automation and brought to our country. So it's an amazing field, a lot of potential, and but at the same time, a lot of challenges to address as well.
Hmm. Thank you so much. And Nawera Masood has joined, and I think she has a comment about that the current situation is definitely going to globalize and decentralize the concept of universities and education. And I think it also will have impact on health and other sectors, things that
Mm.
are impacting us globally. Thank you so much, Dr. Munira, for having such an engaging conversation. It's really a pleasure to host you and have this chat with you. And I look forward to having more interactions with you through PWIC and also other mediums. But thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and
Really nice
experiences with us.
being here with you, and thank you so much for inviting me, giving me this opportunity to connect with all the global community of Pakistani tech people. And thank you so much. I look forward to see you again as well.
Thank you. All right. Bye. Allah Hafiz.